Welcome back, everybody, to a new video. So, most of the time, especially for beginner web designers, the hardest part is the hero section. And when we talk specifically, we mean that it's hard to make a hero section interesting. So, most of the time, your hero section will either look bland, uninteresting, or it might look cluttered and with more information that it actually needs. So today we're going to look into a couple of accents that we could use to make our hero section interesting, our overall design interesting. We're going to be looking into glass morphism, gradients, blurs, and many things. So let's start. Obviously, as always, before we go over and work on the hero section, we need to work on the navbar. Uh, so how do we do that? First, let's start from the logo. Let's just create a simple logo. We created this logo many times, so it's very simple. Just 16 here, duplicate this, move it here, then make both of them your brand color. For today, I'm using like this sort of brand color, and we would actually want to start by making the background darker. So what I'm thinking is to go blue, and we can't go full saturation here because this is just bad UX, it hurts the eyes, but we can just go off black here into a bluish color. Then we need to make our brand color more visible and has more or better contrast. So we can have this as our brand color. We can go here. We can also go here and lift the saturation and the lightness to make it more visible. And I do like this one, so I'm just gonna go with it, and I'm actually gonna give it a negative gap. And finally, I'm gonna take this one and give it a stroke, just some stroke, which will be the same color as the background. Also, we want to go over here and give it a gradient from left to right, which will be from our primary color here to our actually darker sort of color. So we're gonna fade out. Okay, so let's just do this, and this will be our logo. After that, we'll need a name. I'm just gonna call it Lean, which is actually software I've been working on. So I'm just going to give it that name, 16 pixels. Enter will work well with this kind of modern design. We could actually increase the size. Okay, again, let's flatten it out and try to increase the size. So, okay, let's actually take this frame out. Let's remove this frame. So just take this, make it a bit bigger. 18 pixels works fine here. So finally we can group them. We can call this the logo with lowercase, of course, and we can name this the identity. So this part is important because you want your users to always know what website they're in. So 4 pixel gap, and I'm just gonna leave it as it is. This works. Okay, then we need our nav links. So very simple, we need a home to always indicate where the user is. So I'm gonna go with 14 pixels here, not semi-bold, but regular. Very simple. I'm gonna give another section about products. What other would be services and pricing? And I think 5 links here is quite enough. Let's select them all, and we want to actually make a difference, make a sort of, we want a separation between the active link, which is the page we're currently on, and the inactive or unvisited links. So we can just give it our background color and just increase its saturation. We can leave it here, but I think this has more or less more visibility or visual hierarchy. So we can go with a grayish color. Here, this has enough contrast while having less visual hierarchy. So we can just group all of these and go with 24 maybe 32. 32 I think works fine here. So this will be our nav links. Next, okay, so let's just say this is our length. And next we want to work on our call to actions. Call to actions, so our buttons. For example, one of the call to actions would be sign up. How can we make this interesting? So let's go give it some visual hierarchy by going 16 and semi-bold. Then what we can do is make it into a frame, call it the primary call to action. Primary 32 padding by 16. Can go 0 here on the gap since we'll not have additional sort of accents here. So we can give it a background color of our main color. Then what we can do is we can give it some border radius, 8 pixels I think works fine here. But we can actually make this a bit more interesting. But just let's reduce the vertical padding and also the horizontal padding. Okay, this works. Now we can go to the fill and give it a gradient. So gradients in buttons can be used to make the button just feel more depth. So by doing this, let's pull this in a bit, and we want to change this color into a lighter version. Now this button looks like it has a bit more depth, so I would like to use this button instead. Okay, so next we want to simply duplicate this and create our secondary button, which will be the login button. So the login button will be very simple. It won't have an actual background, but it will have a background of the background it is actually on. So the background color will give that as its background itself and give it some stroke. So we want the stroke not to be very visible, but we want to go subtle stroke while feeling light. So we can actually maybe like go here too and give it something like that to make it subtle. Or we could go here and give it just a bit. Okay, I'm just gonna stick with this for now. More of gray. And what we can do here is we can give it a glassmorphic effect. How do we do that? It's very simple. First, we want to go to Effects, Background Blur, and add, let's make it 48 for now. So then we want to go to the 100% here and go 1%. So what will happen here is, for example, if we have like, let's say a line here, and let's make this wider, and let's make this like maybe white. So when we pull this and make it to the back of this, there is a glassmorphic effect. You can see. So that's what we're going for. Okay, so now we can group our call to actions in a frame called CTAs or call to actions. And now we can give it 16 pixel gap, and now we can finally make everything work together. Horizontally stacked content. Okay, I'm gonna call this navbar. Then simply we want to go and make everything hug content. So let's make this hug and also this hug content. Okay, great. Only thing that remains, make it central line, give it some vertical padding. Then finally, we want to go to layout grid and add a layout grid of type columns. And we'll go for 16 columns here. 16 columns. then we can simply put this top left of the column and give it the full width, and finally make it okay. Give it a spacing of auto to have the maximum space in between the elements. And now as we disable this, we have a navbar. Okay, so our navbar is done. Nothing really complicated happened here. It's just a basic navbar, very simple. The real action now comes in the hero section. So before you want to like even think about making your hero section interesting, you wanted to make sure that all the content you need is available in the hero section. What are those contents? The first thing is a headline. So a headline. Let's say that this is for maybe a design agency, right? So okay, so you are okay. We make the best UI UX designs online. Just some headline, and let's make it bigger. 48 here, I think works, and let's give it some weight, so semi-bold. We could also maybe increase this a bit to 52 or 56. 56 here maybe. Let's go 56. Okay, let's central line it, and we can try to make it maybe regular. Does regular work? I'm not sure. For now, I'm just gonna stick with semi-bold. And yeah, maybe let's try a different font, maybe Poppins. Yeah, I'm just gonna stick with Inter now. So you have to just look at your design and see what works and what doesn't. Your eyes are the biggest source of truth here in design. So let's go with a sub headline here. Lean is one of the most trustworthy design web and mobile design agencies. Uh, in today's web development market, or we can say software. Okay, so let's just make this regular, and we don't want it to have as much contrast as the headline, so we can just decrease this a bit. Okay, great. Still enough contrast to be seen, but not enough contrast to compete for attention against the headline. Okay, we are 1, 2. Now we need our call to actions here. So let's duplicate these because we're going to do something resembling here. So instead of sign up, we want to make a more of an effort to pull the user in. So we want to say get started. So that's more attractive. And instead of using a bland sort of button, we can actually add an accent in the form of maybe a triangle. So we can just flatten it out first. I would like to make it white, give it some corner radius, and let's translate it to be 90 degrees rotated. We can also put it here, then give it some 8 pixel gap, and let's reduce its size actually. So from 15.75 we want to go to about 12, and that actually works. Instead of login, we want to say watch a video. Maybe we have an explainer video prepared. So watch a video. So when we say watch a video, I think it's good if we have sort of a video icon. So I'm just gonna grab that. Okay, so we're here on the XNIX icon pack, which is like my favorite icon pack for such users. Now we want to find a video icon. So most of the time I use this, so I like this one. What we can do is we can go and paste it here. It's dark, so we can't really see it now, so we want to go and make it white. Okay, next up, we want to outline stroke and simply give it 8 pixel gap. And we can actually make this here. It works actually like this. So if it's an indicator to go somewhere, I prefer it to be on the right instead of the left. But here, since this is like an illustration of sorts to just support this, I would prefer to be on the left. So I'm just gonna go and give it 12 pixels, and this should work. Again, you have to remember that if we have some sort of illustration or icon here, this is glass morphic. So we will have this cool effect. And obviously we are not using the effect currently, but when we're done with the actual content, you can be sure that we're gonna work around using that. Okay, great. So far, so good. Next, what do we need? So I'm thinking to show uh, a banner. So, for example, let's say we are having a conference, okay? So what we could have a banner saying, join our 2025 web design conference. Okay, so this is, let's make this regular and 14, okay? And we can have sort of a button saying follow for more. Okay, we can or we can say book a ticket. And we can make this a button. Very simple CTA here. And it will be like very small actually, 8 by 8. Then we wanted to give it our primary color as the background. Also, we can try give it full corner radius, or we can keep with what we've been doing. So 8 pixels here. And let's actually give it more on the horizontal side of things. So 12 pixel horizontal padding. Also, let's make this just semi-bold. Okay, so now we can group these two here. Give it 16 pixel gap, central alignment, and 16 by 16 padding with fill of 1%, and it will be this color with 1%. So obviously if we are saying 1% here, that means we want glass morphism. So not layer blur, but background blur. We want to give it the same. I believe it was 32 or is it 64? I'm going to go with 32 for now. And I want to give it a stroke. The stroke color should be the same. So I'm just going to give it this one, which we used for the button so far. Also, I'm going to give it some corner radius. So we can go 8 here. So there's a rule, if you use 8 corner radius, you can't use 8 inside. So you want to decrease it just a bit. So I'm just going to go 16. So this will be our sort of our banner, but obviously, again, we can test out the glass morphism. Again, it works perfectly here. So we can actually place it up top. So how can we make this actually just a bit more interesting? There are a couple of ways we can do that. The first thing I'm thinking of as I look at it is we can use icons, Figma icons. We can use the star icon here. And we can get this inside the button actually. So we can get it here. Just make it smaller, maybe 12. Let's go to the button and provide some spacing, 8 pixels maybe. This should be white, and instead of 5 we can add a bit more, maybe 8 works fine here. Yeah, so now obviously like this is more interesting. We can even try to use this in the overall design. We can put this back here, and I think that works. I think that's nice. Okay, great. So we can move on. So what do you want to add next? So very simple, I would like to add a trust section where different companies are visible or are shown to indicate that we have worked with those in the past to give the user more of a comfort when thinking about our brand. So let's first rename this banner. Let's rename this accents and let's rename this accent. So then we can copy this actually and say instead trusted by over 300 plus companies. Okay, then let's try to give this the icons or the logos for the companies we have worked with. So I'm just going to copy a list of icons here. Let's try to make this a bit smaller. So actually we need to go over to each icon here. By the way, you can find these icons in the actual design file. So you can go over to the description down below and you can just click that link to get this Figma file. You can duplicate it and take whatever you want from it. So I encourage you to make use of that. So we're gonna make this around 48 pixels and the gap instead of also I'm just gonna use 24 here and give it a hot content. So this is actually a color I want to use in this design. So what I can do is I can spurse that in. So I can put that in places I didn't do that before. So I'm just going to come here and add this. So instead of going full black, which works actually, we would go the color of the background to make this a bit more interesting. So can we actually do this with the text too? I think that works perfectly. So that's just sparkling in some accent color makes your design feel a whole lot more interesting. So what I'm going to do finally is I'm going to go and drag a square and sorry, a rectangle here. And the rectangle would have an absolute position. I'm just going to make it cover everything. And the reason I'm going to do that is for another gradient effect. What we can do is we can give this the color of the background. Very simple. We can go over to the fill and actually make it a linear gradient. So from both of the colors will be the same. But in the middle we'll have 0. Okay, so in the middle everything will be visible. So we can just drag it around to make it fit correctly. And now we have this like interesting looking gradient section. Very nice. Okay, so now we can group these and go 16 pixels. That will make it more interesting. Finally, this is everything we need in our hero section. Obviously, you can have much more. You can have like cards here showing statistics or many things. You can do many things, but we're going to keep it simple today. So let's start by like grouping the headings. So I'm just gonna give it 8 pixel gap, works fine. Here 16 pixels gap I would like, and here I would like to go 32 or maybe yeah 32 works fine. So by the way, if you're confused on where these numbers are, we have spoken much more about it in previous videos. So you can check out either the modern web design tutorial series, or you could check out like even the previous videos where we have spoken a bit about this, so feel free. Okay, now we want to give this maybe 64 and we want to center align this. Great, so So far, so good. Now we have our hero section. We want to make this a bit more interesting. So how do we do that? So we want to make use of our gradients, our blurs, and much more stuff Figma offers us. So let's start by creating a circle. I'm going to show you why in a moment. So let's make a circle. Let's give the circle a gradient. So from our primary color to be our primary color of darker saturation. So then we want to give it an effect. Instead of drop shadow, we want to go layer blur and maybe 64 here. So it will become more and more blurred. So I'm going to go 96 here and go and make this darker. Okay, so make this darker. That's great. You can also experiment by using radial gradients, but I'm going to stick with angular gradients. So I'm just going to decrease the size. Okay, so now we have this cool blurry effect, and we can actually just decrease this to be about 65 works fine here. Just keep it, we don't want it to have too much say in the design. So we can just duplicate this and just let's try to put it throughout the design. So obviously you can see the glass morphism in effect here. So that's why we want to like put it close to this. Let's just put them around all over the design. Okay. Okay, we don't want this to like cut off. So I'm just gonna put this just above here too, just above. And that works fine. So let's pull that back. Maybe let's add one more. So let's get it inside here. Okay. Let's pull this outside a bit. So stop. We can also like select all of these. And let's try to maybe put them in a position they work best. Okay, somewhere around here. And now we can actually just select everything here, go to the gradient, I think it was this one, and we can experiment with it, try to make it interesting. So what can we do? What can we do? We can pull this, we can make it lighter, or we can make it darker. I think I like the darker even more. We can try to give it our secondary color, which looks absolutely incredible. I'm really loving this. So obviously you have to make sure there is enough contrast and your content is actually visible. So I think this works. I think like this is an interesting looking hero section, which we created from scratch. Okay, so we can actually make the navbar like more interesting too. How maybe we could actually give it some stroke in the bottom. Not white, but darker one, which we actually were using this stroke here. This could work, or we could actually take this, make this the case, make it even wider. Then we can give it some padding here, 96 maybe, and this works. So now we want to also give this the effect, not layer blur, but background blur. Make it with higher 64. So now when we, for example, when we have, if we have some sort of element here, when we put it back, okay, so we also need to give it some fill. Let's give it the fill of the background and obviously 1%, so can get this sort of. Okay, so this actually works. We can actually maybe pull some up here just to check it out. Let's actually duplicate one more, fill out the space. I really like this one. Okay, that looks great. I would like to though decrease the stroke visibility here, so I'm just gonna opt for something a bit more darker. Okay, yeah. So finally we want to put everything on top of this part here to make it more interesting and get a cutoff. Okay, yeah. So what's left here? Probably nothing. Everything works and looks great. There is uh, there is so much here we can learn from, and I tried to like just ground the lesson today to be on gradients, blurs, and glass morphism. So using these three principles, these three trends, these three accents, you can actually make your designs a whole lot more interesting. So thanks for watching. Okay, really, this was a really interesting video. You can check out the modern design web design tutorial series to learn more about the basic principles of web design, or you could contact me on X for private mentorship. Thanks for watching again. Yeah, until next time, goodbye.